Hi, everyone, and good evening. My name is Allie Gustafson, your community organizer with KS Wild, and I'm calling in from the unceded lands of the native tribes of the Takilma and Shasta people that is now called Central Point, Oregon. They are not only important parts of this history, but in its future and continuing knowledge of this place too. So if you don't know whose land you're on right now, educate yourself with the place you live and the work that those tribal nations are advocating for. So you can check out our link that I will put into the chat box, and you can find out whose land you're on right now if you don't know. And a good place to support local tribal nations is support the work that those tribal nations are advocating for, or make a donation to those local tribal nations. We'll put some links in the chat box for you. Since I can't see any of your faces tonight, navigate to the chat box and let me know where you are zooming in from tonight. It's fun to see where everyone is tuning in from. With that, I'm so happy you all are here with us tonight. We have a great presentation in store for you titled Paddle into the Past, Klamath Basin Yurok Canoe Trips. So before we begin, I have a few announcements. The Love Where You Live webinar series is produced by KS Wild. We are an environmental nonprofit organization working to promote science-based land and water conservation through policy and community action, which is all of you. So thank you for being with us tonight and for your support to protect the Klamath-Siskiyou region. With that, I want to let everyone know that this session will be recorded, and I'll send a link out to you all if you need to leave early, or in case you didn't make it tonight, you can view at your earliest convenience. We also will save time at the end for some questions. So if you have questions, type them into the chat box and we will save time at the end to answer those for you. Now get comfy, sit back with your favorite beverage, and I hope you enjoy tonight's presentation. And now I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Josh Norris. He's manager of the Yurok Country Visitor Center and the Redwood Yurok Canoe Tours down in the Klamath County. He has spent most of his career as a high school English and social science teacher and as a community organizer. So thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'll now turn it over to you, Josh, to begin. Let me turn off my screen share for you.
Good afternoon, or I guess it's evening. Nekno Josh. Papau Esi Wechquel Mate from the villages of Papau and Wechquel at the mouth of the Klamath River, and that's actually in Delnor County, the extreme northern tip of California. And yeah, so I am the manager of the Redwood Yurok Canoe Tours. I know that's a mouthful, but you get used to it. And the visitor center there. And yeah, I feel like, I mean, I'll just start the presentation by saying that's sort of, I don't like to say destiny, but I certainly have been working my way towards something of this nature for a very long time, this type of job, because I feel like it's the best of both worlds for me. And some of my greatest teachers, native and non-native, led me to embrace really loving my culture and loving and also loving education. And when I get a chance to educate using the pedagogy of my peoples, which I feel like I have the opportunity to do with this job, that's when it seems like the best of both worlds to me. So I want to start off with a little sharing of my past. I was born in Crescent City, California. which is the, sort of, it's a small town, but it's also the main sort of urban hub of Del Norte County. And I actually had to move out of the area when I was very young. When I was 2 years old, I moved up to Eugene, Oregon. And I spent most of my childhood there. I returned often home to obviously to visit my family and friends and the place. And I grew attached to the place, well, probably since I was born, but from a very young age. My fondest memories were here in Del Norte County at the Klamath River and on the beaches in Crescent City and that sort of thing. During that time that I was away, though, I didn't have a lot of connection to my culture and my Yurok people here, Pulikla. I didn't have much contact with my dad, maybe a little bit, but he did when I was very young. He gifted me this Redwood canoe. It doesn't quite fit all the way. This is a model Redwood canoe, and many young Yurok have these, but this one was carved by my dad, and it's very special. It's been pretty beat up over the years. Obviously, it's almost 50 years old. It's missing a few parts, missing the old nose and a little part of the seat. But I still have it, and it's still important to me. And the reason is because when I was young, I would just sort of cradle it and look at it and play with it and imagine people in it. And I was very attached to it, much more so than probably a lot of my other sort of store-bought toys. And because I felt that immediate connection to something that I felt like was missing in my life. It was sort of a mystery. It was like almost growing up with a part of yourself in another place far away, and so this connected me to that place instantaneously. There was a few other things along the way that connected me, definitely. When I'd get a taste of smoked salmon or something like that, it would instantly taken to me. It felt like it awakened those ancestors within me, and it just woke me up right to this place and gave me an instant connection. And I think that's really important for people to have. Not everyone thinks that it's important, and it doesn't need to be important to everyone. But I certainly think that the more we are able to connect with our landscape and the history of that landscape and the original inhabitants of that landscape, the more we can appreciate the gifts that it bestows us and how the landscape takes care of us. And we're much more likely to, in turn, take care of it. And that's actually one of the main reasons that I'm doing this job, and one of the main messages that I have for our guests when they come through, and main purposes is like, you may not have the opportunity like this to connect with something that comes from the land, like a redwood dugout canoe, and in the place that it was intended to be, and in the manner that it has been for thousands of years, countless generations. You may not have the opportunity to do that every day, and it may not be your culture, but I think there is, in my experience, every single guest that we had in one of those canoes had some sort of, I don't know how to describe the experience, but it was, because I mean, for me, obviously there's that connection, and I know who my ancestors are and where they're buried and all that. But I think for other people, it's just something. One of our elders described it as something that's in our DNA. This need to connect to these vessels, because almost every culture that's near water has some sort of heritage that has to do with a boat being built out of the materials that are right there, and then being in that boat on those bodies of water. It's just something that's deeply ingrained in all humans, I think. Um, and so our guests are feeling that when they're out there in those canoes. And I call it the canoe smile. Like when they finish a tour and they get out of the boat, they all almost have the identical same sort of smile. It's almost like a peaceful Zen kind of smile. And then they're really grateful, especially about what they're able to learn during that short time. And the point I want to make there is, I mean, this is where the education and the pedagogy comes in, right? I've been able to influence the thinking of so many people on such a higher level than I ever was able to inside a four-walled classroom. And that's because I mean, people are they're engaged instantly as soon as you take them down to the waterfront and they see the canoes and I tell the story about the canoes, and they're instantly drawn in. And I'll share a little bit about what I say about the canoes. So we come on down to where they are. I love the picture, Ali, that you shared, by the way. That's actually my son in the front of that canoe. And it was a great opportunity for him too. So I bring our guests down, or we do. The crew also has learned all about the story of the origins of the canoe and what all the meanings are. But essentially, I won't give you the whole story, but essentially, Oth Weach is what we call canoe, and that is the boat of the people. And Yacht is meaning boat, and Oth is the people and us. So Yurok folk, we believe in that there was a time before human beings, us, the Oth, where other spirit beings walked the earth. And they were more powerful than us, and they grew to be powerful. And some of them are still here among us, and their job is to, one of their functions is to take care of us human people, and provide us things that we need to survive and sort of guide us along. And one of those is Keith, which is the Redwood Tree. And Keith grew very large for the purpose of protecting human beings. And they provide wood planks for our houses. They provide wood for our drums, our cooking sticks, and of course our most prized possession, which is the Weach. And in turn, it's the key requests that human beings treat it as one of our own, as a member of the family, and that we take very good care of it and give it essentially a new life. So when it falls down on the forest floor, it's requesting that it's given a new life out there on the water. And so in order to make that possible, we carve within it these necessary parts. We have there's a nose in the front, which leads the way to good things, especially to good smelling food, right? Then we have, in every single one, there's the heart. Okay, that's the pulse of life, keeps things going. They all have these two bumps in the back. Those are the kidneys. Those are for purification. Okay, and we are people, as do a lot of Native people, and a lot of folks for that matter, believe that if you're going to do anything important, you do it with purity, pure heart and mind, and that's what the kidneys are for. And then going around the edge of the canoe is the arms. That's where you hold the canoe and pull it along. And then there's usually a little divot, you can't quite see here, that goes all the way around. It's and that's the lifeline, and that represents the lifeblood. And this canoe doesn't really have it well represented, but this Othwayach, but typically there is a two bumps up here. Well, it's actually two indentations, and we call those the the lungs or the breast, depending on where you're from. Many say, and this is not fully agreed upon, that it takes the form of a woman. And if you think about it, if you look closely at the shape and the fact that it holds people within it, it seems rather feminine. So that's what we tell people before we even get into the Oshweach, and then we give them a little safety speech and we get out on the water. And one of the first things that people remark on is how smooth they are. I love that. We've gotten, before we started this, a lot of people thought we may be doomed to fail because, I heard so many things. You're not going to be able to insure those. They're unsafe, they're unsteady, blah, blah, blah. And then a lot of people won't even get in them because they think they're unsafe. But of course, people's experience once they get in is like, these are really sturdy. Well, yeah, I mean, it's a redwood log. This is a design that has been passed down for countless generations on this very place that it is today. So yeah, they're seaworthy. They work very well, and they can get going pretty good too, if you have the right crew in there. And yeah, it's a smooth ride, and it just feels like I don't know, it's effortless. You know, if you have a crew in there that's doing it right, they hardly have to, most people when they get into a canoe, they feel like, okay, to make it go, we have to dig in really hard. It's very nuanced, it's very subtle, the movements that you make with the paddle, and really the wind and the current. Those are the things that give that vessel the power, and we're just sort of guiding it to where we want to go. And so if you're doing it right, you're going from eddy to eddy. If you're going upriver, avoiding the wind, using the current. If you're going, in the old days, they even used to put sails. You take a post and put it actually in the heart, and they had like elk hide sails, which could be controlled from the back seat. Oh, I forgot to mention the seat, by the way. Everyone has one, and that was requested by Keith as a place for people to rest after a hard day's work. Well, as it turns out, that's actually where most of the work takes place, in the canoe. But so I think I wanted to share just a few shots here, because I think the visual is really important here, just because they're so visually stunning. And I want to show and give credit to the folks who put all this work into this program being developed. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. There we go. Should be good. Okay. So there is the spelling of Oshweach. And that's another thing, by the way, that has greatly influenced our ability to connect back with our ancestors and our places, is bringing back that language. And like our canoe culture and many other aspects of our culture, it almost became extinct. It was predicted to become extinct by the year 2012, when most of the original speakers or native speakers would have passed on. But between 2000 and now, I mean, just a tremendous effort has been put forth by Yurok tribe and the education department, our language department, and some other organizations, and working with elders and recording the language. And Berkeley language program. And now it's being taught in several schools. It passes UC foreign language requirements. And so that's a really big accomplishment. And I really feel that my hope is that canoe culture takes off as well as the language did, and that it becomes sort of a mainstay of what we do now, and it makes a comeback. And once again, we're going to see And you'll look out in a body of water like that, and you're going to see 10 canoes all at once out there. It'd just be a beautiful sight, and very powerful symbol of our resurgence as a people, and reclaiming the land and reclaiming our heritage and that connection, and then further to share with other people. And there's been a lot of controversy over when we first were putting the idea out there about sharing. It's not plain and simple for Native folks to just, oh yeah, this is our beautiful culture, let's just share it with you. It's really a complicated task, because of our past history of exploitation, and our past history of being shamed for practicing our culture, for being even beaten if the language is spoken, say in one of those residential boarding schools. My grandfather shared his experience with that, and just just the mistrust that we have, that folks are going to misuse our culture, and then there's the cultural appropriation as well. So there's a lot of controversy in sharing. My perspective on it is that there are some things that I will not share with the public. Some of our, some of our aspects of our highest ceremonies and things like that, that I think need to be protected in order to keep them alive. This, on the other hand, I and many others feel that it's actually going to have the opposite effect. When we share it with people, it's going to help it to develop and to grow, because people will take interest in it, and it's already happening. Like where when we first were presenting the idea to, say, national parks and state parks and other entities, who were reluctant to share the redwood. I mean, this is one of the reasons that this culture almost died, is because we had no access to the old growth redwood that's necessary. And so now there is sort of like, now we're sharing it with the public. And I think that sort of, and there's also sort of a paradigm shift happening within all these agencies about what is wilderness and what do they need to protect. Not necessarily fallen redwood logs on the forest floor, because those were always used for this purpose. Okay, so go through a couple more slides, see what we got here. Okay, so traditional uses. Oops. Touchy bad. So there are many uses of the canoe. You can see an old, and what I like to share with people is that we've been sharing canoe culture since settlement began. I mean, since the first Spaniards arrived in 1787, we've helped them get across our waterways with canoes. So yeah, transportation, goods and trade, hunting and fishing, getting where you need to go, and then we have ceremony, and then ferriage. We had an old man, one of our medicine men, tell us that his great granddad used to provide ferry service across the river before there was a bridge, and so for him that rekindled that memory of talking with his great grandpa. Let's see. I'm gonna keep it light today, so I'm gonna skip that part. But this is sort of this is the Trees of Mystery, which is located in Klamath, and this is their sort of representation of the Yurok canoe. And I just want to show that real quick. This was just as another reason that I believe in cultural heritage tourism, and bringing back this and making it available to the public, because otherwise other folks, non-native folks, are telling our stories and sharing that heritage from their perspective, much like anthropologists have done, and I think that creates more damage. So I am happy to have the opportunity to, first of all, learning everything I can from our elders and our people, and then sharing that back with the public so that we can make sure that we can get the most accurate representation out there. So this is Trees of Mystery in their little blurb, which is, it's okay, but it definitely does not tell the whole story. And how are you going to connect with something like this, really? Um, and then I don't know what that dude's doing there. Okay. So yeah, the idea started back in I believe the idea was first born around 2012. I was working in the planning department at the time at the Yurok tribe, and our now chairman, Joseph James, was working in the transportation department, and they were involved. They were throwing this idea around, and as soon as I heard it, I glommed onto it. I was like, yeah, this is. I think that's a great idea. And so we pursued funding from, say, the Scenic Byways program and some other funding sources, and created a feasibility study. And everyone we surveyed said, yes, great, I would be a part of that. I would definitely do that. And then we developed a business plan, and then we had to work on getting the logs. Now, this was the part where everybody said, there's no way this is going to work. You're never going to get the number of logs that you need to, that are canoe worthy. And yeah, we were pretty nervous about that for a while, but like I said, we're developing new partnerships with some of these agencies, and one of them is the National Forest Service, Six Rivers National Forest. We actually have a little square here in Klamath that's called the Redwood Experimental Forest, and it's actually in legislation right now to become a part of Yurok Reservation. It is actually supposed to during the Hoopa Yurok Settlement Act, but that's another story. So in any case, we have an agreement, an MOA with them, that we can harvest wood from the forest floor if it's for cultural purposes and it's not within a protected area. And so we worked, and we worked with a couple of their liaisons, and scouted out the forest for suitable logs. And this is one you're looking at right there. It's and I happen to live right on the edge of this forest. I'm very blessed. And and first looking at the log, you can't really tell, but we can see is that it's a straight grain, right, which is somewhat important. It's sizable enough. They need to be about 5 feet in diameter. And then you have to have like 20 feet lengths at least, because they're about 17 to 25 feet long. And then we had our watershed restoration department extract the logs. And here they are sitting in their yard there. And that's a chunk that was used for a canoe. And there's one being worked on in front of the tribe there, and that's a group of students from a local high school, and they were all getting in. And that's the other thing, is the young people instantly connect with this culture, and they just love it. They get right into it, and it's just, I don't know, just the feeling of working on something like this. It's so powerful. And there's some paddle making. And there's and the other thing about this now is that we were able to secure the funds to carve 6 canoes. And so now our canoe carvers are getting paid more than they ever have for carving canoes. And they're happy about that. There's more canoes being carved, and more people are learning from them. This is one of our master carvers named Porty Blake, and he lives in Hoopa. And that one should be on the water soon. There's one that was completed in 2020. We call this one Big Baby. That was named by the young kids that we're working with at the Boys and Girls Club. They said they want to take Big Baby out. Or we're talking about what? The baby? That's the biggest canoe we have. I mean, this thing's 20 feet, weighs 900 pounds, is huge. I said, well, it was born last year, so it's a baby. Okay, well, that's its name now, the big baby. And this was carved by a man named Dave Severance, and he learned from master carver uh, um, George Wilson. I get the Georges confused sometimes. And there's well, that's not our trailer, but one we're using at the time. Kind of fancy little van, catches a lot of attention there. And that's our visitor center there in the town site of Klamath. And there's some of our crew there early on, and one of our guests. And they just did a bang up job. I mean, people were sending them postcards and gifts through the mail after their tours. And we all just had a blast. There's us out in the water with some guests. That's right across from the town of Klamath. This is Flint Ridge. It's actually one of the only old growth redwood stand on the reservation that is remaining. And no, we haven't got any canoe logs out of that one yet, but there's definitely potential. And there's some kids enjoying the water, and they love it. And they also tend to fall asleep a lot on the tours, which I love. Okay, so I think that's the end of the slides. So stop there. I would love to take any questions if there are questions at this time. Did we have any in the chat?
Yeah, so where can folks go to take a Redwood canoe tour? Is the season over, or can folks still get on the river, or do they have to wait till next summer?
The season is over. Yeah, and a lot of people are calling me. It's beautiful right now. It'd be really nice, but we had to end it for a number of reasons. But unfortunately, COVID is one of the reasons. But yeah, next year I have not created availabilities for next year, but I think I'm going to have to do it pretty soon because people are already asking. So I'm going to get on that next week and do that, but it'll open June 1st. We'll have some complimentary rides for community members and tribal members in May, and train up some more people. And then in June, we'll get started with the tour. So you go to visityurokcountry.com, and then you click on canoes, and it's pretty straightforward, and you can book online. And I can
I
pull
put
up the
that link in the chat box for folks.
Okay, great.
So it's in the chat box, and that'll translate over in the recording too. So the folks that didn't make it tonight, in the follow-up email, they'll get that link.
Yeah.
So we have another question. How much does a redwood canoe weigh?
Good question. There's a lot of different styles of canoes. This is where it gets really fun for me, because I'm also a carver. I don't call myself a canoe carver yet, but I just love working with the wood. And there's many different styles. You have your smaller ones. We had one small one and one large one, like I showed you. The smaller one weighed about 700 pounds, and that was carved in 1968 by Dewey George. And it's still, these things can last hundreds of years if they're well taken care of. And then, so that the larger one there, which was 20 feet, is 900 pounds. Now, it doesn't have to be that heavy. Some more wood can come off of it, but that'll happen over time. And then there's also the potential to have seagoing canoes, which they're not really. Yeah, they're the last one was seen before the 1964 flood, which wiped out all the villages along the Klamath River. including the town of Klamath. And so that washed out a lot of the remaining canoes, actually, sadly. And some of them ended up in museums and different things like that. There is one in Smith River that was discovered in a museum in a basement that's 30 feet long. Its walls are 5 feet high. It's 5 feet wide.
So
So it's just,
that's for the ocean.
yes, this is huge, and the prow shoots way up so it can go through those breakers. And yeah, of course, we're hoping to see one of those back on the water. And those were used actually for, you could go to shoot up to Crescent City or down to Trinidad Bay, or go out to, there's a rock called Redding Rock about a mile off the coast. They hunt seals on.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so that's another sort of dream that's being sort of bandied about, is like, oh, do we want to try that again? Who knows?
Well, you first got a dream for it to be reality. So,
Yeah.
well, that's amazing. I have a comment for you,
Yeah.
Josh, from Claire. She said her and her husband and a friend took the trip this past July, and she said it was wonderful.
Oh, all right.
And she said, we are blessed to have
There.
this opportunity. And she just wants to say thank you, Josh, and all the captains for making it possible. So thank you,
All
Claire.
right. That's great. That's great. Yeah. And that's, I mean, I'm just loving the opportunity to make people happy. And also, I think, was memorable for a lot of our guests, and I don't want to speak for anyone, but is just I don't know. It's like when you can be in an environment like that and share with perfect strangers, it lends itself to having these great conversations. And we cover so many topics, not just our culture and things like that, but current events and struggles with our daily lives and what's going on in your part of the world. And we just had a great time. Yeah, I loved it all.
Did you get any visitors from outside the country this year?
I can't say for certain. I don't think so, which was, I mean, it was kind of expected. And I also was not expecting a lot of people from all over the US, and that also did not happen yet. I think it will. The vast majority were from California, Oregon, and Washington, mostly from California, the Bay Area, and LA. We had a piece in the LA Times in the travel section, and that brought a lot of people to us. So I was really grateful for that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. This was your first year?
First season, yep.
First season offering this. Well, I want to do one last shout out to those of you here with us. Are there any more questions? And if not, Josh, do you have any closing words for us?
Oh gosh. Um, I mean, I do. It's really weird for me not to be able to see folks and communicate with them, because I'm used to this sort of you know being somewhat intimate in the canoe, and it's funny just because but I will share that I really want everyone to have the opportunity to connect in some way to the land that you live in. And I really appreciate you acknowledging the acknowledgement that you made in the beginning. That's really important. And I want to suggest that everyone has the opportunity. I mean, so you're all up in the sort of in the Rogue River area, is that
Correct.
okay? So I have connected that with that landscape. I kind of wanted to share that. They have a relay race that they do every year called the Rogue River Relay Race. I don't know if it's still called that or if they still do it. Probably not.
Yes. Yeah.
But I did that a couple of times, and that the act of running there by the river and just that breathing that air, and I connected in a way that I probably definitely wouldn't have if I was just driving through, or maybe I camped and that sort of thing. So I don't know, it's like this, it's like this journey. And I just want to encourage everyone. I mean, it's probably your folks are the kind of folks who love to do that thing in the first place, I'm guessing. So I guess it's not really necessary, but um, let's see what else. Oh, I had some things that I wrote down real quick. Let me see. No, got that. Oh yeah, there's one thing that you said in the beginning, and actually, I probably you probably got that off our website or something like that. You said paddle into the past.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to turn that around right now because that actually I thought about that a lot, and it's what we're trying to do is avoid associating what we're doing now with just the past. Like we're bringing up the past, you know what I'm saying? Because we have battled for so long with this notion that our traditions are dead and that we're a thing of the past. And when I was teaching school in Los Angeles, the kids there didn't even realize that Native Americans existed anymore. So I don't have a true logo yet, but I'm thinking something more along the lines of connecting with an ancient tradition. Okay, so this is something that that you can connect with that has been around for thousands of years. And where else can you do that? It's a completely unique experience. And I mean, I know there may be other places where you can do that somewhat, but this is a living tradition. This is something that we're practicing today. And we really hope that we can actually extend this and maybe do some overnight trips, do full day tours, um, and connect the canoe tour to a trail, perhaps, because trails was one of our other most important, I mean, the only way to travel. But so I'm hoping to extend it actually.
Yeah, when you brought up smoked salmon, whenever I eat smoked salmon when I'm out, not inside, when I'm out hiking around, I call it trail magic. So
Nice.
it just
Yeah.
gives me, it gives everyone, good
I
good
love that.
energy that you need when you're out there. So love
Yeah,
it.
we've been
Yeah.
processing the heck out of it. It was also a very good a year for the fish. Sort of an anomaly within this drought, but
Mhm.
the river was happy. It was clear water. The fish were happy this year, so people are putting actual smoked salmon in their pantries now, which hasn't happened for a few years. So we're very grateful for that.
Definitely, definitely. Well, with your ending words, connection to place, that's the name of this webinar series is Love Where You Live. And when you have that connection to place, you want to protect it and defend it and learn more about it and connect with it more. And so I think those are great words and sentiments to leave this webinar tonight with. So I really appreciate that. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes, and that's not history or in the past, it's here and now. So all of what you are working on is exciting, and I hope folks can dig into it more. And I put that link into the chat box, everyone. So go to that Yurok website and check out the canoe tour trips. And that's how you sign up next season to get on the river with Josh and his crew.
Great. Oh, and thank you for the comments, Claire. And if there was another question, or we?
That was it.
Okay.
That was it. So with that, I will send around a follow-up email, everyone, with the link, and I'll add in the canoe link in there as well for everyone. And with that, have a great rest of your night and into fall. And Josh, if you have any words you want to leave us with, I'll let you say the final piece.
Well, thank you, everyone. Talk with Sean. That's the way it is, right? So
Thank you. Good night, everyone.